I would have to say, when you see these people coming out of the surgery, they've got a patch over their eye. They can't see yet because their vision won't be fully restored till a day or two later. But they shake your hand, they are indebted to you when they don't need to be. Where they're doing what Australians do. We like helping people. But to them, they are so indebted to you and they can't stop thanking you. And the thank yous that we get from these people, that says it all. It's just fantastic. I'm involved because of my Rotary Club and the fact that it is one of their international projects. Now, the first thing we have to look at is Rotary does not support any international project. Rotary supports international projects that it sees fit to promote. You have to remember, we don't just provide logistical support in means of manpower. We actually donate money raised by our members. So to start with, Rotary would never support an organisation unless it had credibility to start with. But I realised that after my first trip away, and then to the subsequent monthly meetings that this organisation has, they are quite serious about what they do. They're quite serious about growing the organisation. They are serious about bringing younger people into the organisation, and I just see that as fantastic. The credibility of the organisation and the way it's run is second to none. I'm the owner of a Maltese business that manufactures frozen finger foods. About 4.5 years ago I was invited to join my local Rotary Club, Liverpool West. One of the international projects that our club undertakes is the Vietnam Vision Project. I was asked if I wanted to go along on one of their trips to Vietnam and Cambodia with the cataract operations. I said yes, and I've been involved ever since. I think what impacted me most was the fact that we didn't stick to the city areas. We actually visited the rural areas. So we actually went into the heartland of where these problems exist. And the doctors and the whole team performed these operations under very trying conditions in hospitals that were not even well equipped to conduct these sort of operations. And that's what got me the most, the fact that we went into the rural areas and we did the job away from the city areas. So the people didn't have to come to us, we went to them. Well, as a Rotarian, I'm not a doctor or a an ophthalmologist or a nurse. So what we can bring to the whole project is we can carry out the logistical stuff, make sure that the theatres are set up, carry all the heavy equipment, look after crowd control, direct traffic. By that I mean direct the patients into operating theatres, out of operating theatres, into the recovery areas, keep their families away because a lot of the families do like to intrude and come very close to where the operations occur and into that area. Basically it's logistical stuff, and I think the good thing is doctors, the GPs, the professionals can stick to what they do well and leave the rest to us, and that's what we're good at. Look, I would say that it's money well spent. It's not going down a drain hole. The money is being spent on returning the sight to people that don't have sight. These people cannot afford in any other way to have their sight restored other than by organisations such as the Vietnam Vision Project going to these areas, into these particular places and conducting these operations. Even if they could visit one of the major cities and one of the major hospitals in Vietnam and Cambodia, they still would not be able to afford what one of these operations would cost. So I would say that it's just money well spent. I mean, any charity is a worthwhile one, but one that restores sight is one in particular. After the first or second day, I thought that I felt a little bit out of place because you are mixing with a lot of professional people, doctors, and then you start realising that there's no class between anybody. They treat everybody the same. And after a couple of days, especially after you've been to 2 or 3 of the rural areas and conducted some of these delicate operations in those areas, and then we go back to the hotel and have dinner together, I got to tell you, the feeling, the euphoria is unbelievable, and the camaraderie is fantastic, and it just gets better every year. I hope I remain healthy enough to go on every single yearly trip that these people have, because what I get out of it, I have to admit, is a lot more than what I put into it. I get more than what I put in. I've never felt this way about an organisation. I have to say that my life has completely turned around since I joined Rotary in the first place, and in the second place getting involved with Vietnam Vision. I encourage anybody that can do something for other people, whether it be with Rotary or any other service organisation, become involved, because the joy is not what you put in, the joy is what you get out.
This was my first trip to Vietnam and my first involvement. I'd only been involved for a few months, going to meetings. I saw what the people were talking about. I saw a lot of photos and a lot of information that was provided to me. When I went over there, I actually saw the reaction of the people who were being operated on, their anxiety. Some of them was fear coming through the process and going through the hospital, going through the operation, and then coming out. Actually, you saw the joy on their face and the happiness of knowing that they will most probably be able to see again. Before I went, I heard stories about the importance of eyesight to the people, the culture of the people in Vietnam. They needed to be seen by their elders, or the younger people needed to be seen by their elders, and the elders needed to see the younger people. And once they had these operations done and they were able to see, you could actually see the joy and happiness on their face. If there's any credibility in that statement, well, I think it's the reaction of the people and the happiness that they showed after the operation was completed. What happened was that I had what I would call a life experience. I didn't expect a lot of the things that I saw, a lot of the things that I did experience, and that the way the whole operation was run. In the end, I came out of the place. You couldn't stop me talking about the experiences I had, the people I met, and from the work that everybody had done. Everything worked well and everything got done, I would say, almost perfectly. Again, with operations such as this, perfection is something you try to reach, but I don't suppose you can ever achieve. But I felt good about the work that I did and the work that the people did, and it was contributing to society, I suppose, and I made what I believe to be a good contribution. Well, from what I noticed while on the trip, the first place we went to was out in the countryside of Vietnam, in the middle section, the central part of Vietnam. I believe that a lot of these people had not seen a medical person of any kind in their life, and they didn't know how to go about being medically treated. When this group of people went over to Vietnam, the news got out. There was a lot of preparatory work done in Vietnam before we got there, but the news got out. Transport was organised for these people. The operation was explained to them, what was going to happen, how it was going to happen, and what the final achievement for the particular person was going to be, and the outcome that they were going to receive from the operation. From that, they came from everywhere. There were busloads of them. We thought, we were told that there were going to be a certain number of people. Next thing you know, there's another busload of 40 or 50 turn up. So we just couldn't pack up and go. We stayed and we worked until everybody was operated on and that there were no more people left requiring our services. Well, I was in a position where I assisted with the sterilisation of the instruments going into the theatre. So I was right beside the theatre at all times. Now, the doctors and nurses were absolutely fantastic. One of the highlights of the trip for me was being invited to watch a cataract operation from start to finish and having it explained by the doctor. And from what I saw during the operation, I think it was absolutely fantastic the way that they operated, the conditions that they had to operate under. It was, if you recall the MASH program on TV, it was similar to that. You had to go in, you had to set the hospital up and the theatre up, you had to do the whole thing from start, and in the end you had to pack it all up and take it away. Now, we didn't have bombs dropping around us, but we had a lot of infrastructure problems. The worst one was usually electricity. It kept blowing out on us because the areas we were in did not have very good electricity supplies, and all the instruments that we needed to use used up usually blew the electricity, so we had to basically run around, fix the electrical problem, start all over again, and get going in the operation. But these doctors, they never wavered. Neither did the nurses. There might have been a complaint and a ooh-ah when the lights went out, but they stayed there. They had torches. They worked under all sorts of horrendous conditions, but they did not miss a beat, and they did not miss a single operation.
I've heard this saying that like you make a living with what you get, but you make a life with what you give. And what I would say to, the younger volunteers who may be in uni at the moment, for example, when you graduate, beside work, there is something else that you may be looking for. And a project like this, where you actually give back to people less fortunate, I think is an opportunity that you should look into.
If you'd like to know more about Vietnam Vision projects, contact www.vietnamvision.org.au.